Let's get started. Number 6. The dumb question advantage. Picture a meeting room. Someone asks, "Wait, what does this acronym even mean?" And half the room quietly exhales in relief because they were too scared to ask the same thing. That's the dumb question advantage, and it's less about being dumb and more about strategic humility. Genuinely smart people, the research kind who study expertise, will tell you that faking understanding is a trap you nod along. The gap in your knowledge grows, and eventually you're the person confidently building a spreadsheet formula that means absolutely nothing. Psychologists call this epistemic curiosity, which is a fancy way of saying your brain would rather look silly for 5 seconds than be actually wrong for 5 years. Acting dumb on purpose short-circuits your ego's need to seem competent, and ego, it turns out, is one of the biggest blockers to actual learning. Think of it like a GPS that refuses to say, recalculating, because it's embarrassed. You'd rather it just admit the wrong turn immediately, right? Your brain works the same way, except it's got pride wired into the software. The people who ask the obvious question are usually the ones who end up understanding the material 3 steps deeper than everyone still nodding politely. So the next time someone plays dumb in a meeting, don't pity them, they're running the most efficient debugging process available to the human ego. Basically, stupidity isn't a bug here, it's a diagnostic tool, and everyone too proud to use it is just quietly malfunctioning in silence. Number 5. The genius of forgetting. Your brain forgets things on purpose, and honestly, that's one of its best moves. You'd think a razor-sharp memory would be the ultimate cheat code for intelligence, but people with hyperthymesia, the rare condition where you remember almost every single day of your life in exhaustive detail, often describe it as exhausting, not empowering. Their brains are cluttered with useless receipts of existence, what shirt they wore on a random Tuesday in 2009, every minor argument, every forgettable conversation, all stored with the same weight as the important stuff. Meanwhile, your leaky, dumb memory is quietly doing you a favor by trashing 90% of your day, so your mental hard drive has room for pattern recognition instead of hoarding data. Neuroscientists actually think forgetting is an active process, not a failure. Your brain is deliberately pruning connections the way you'd delete blurry photos to make space for the good ones. This is why cramming for a test works short-term but evaporates by Thursday. Your brain looked at that information, shrugged, and said, "This isn't going in the permanent collection." Acting dumb, in this case, isn't really acting, it's your brain triaging chaos so you can function without drowning in irrelevant detail. So, next time you blank on someone's name, don't panic. Somewhere deep in your skull, a very efficient bouncer is just doing its job, kicking out the freeloaders so the important memories can actually dance. Number 4. Strategic incompetence. You know that one person at work who just can't figure out how the printer works, so someone else always ends up doing it for them? That's not stupidity, that's strategy. And honestly, it's a little bit genius. Psychologists have a term for this pattern. Learned helplessness usually gets used to describe something bad, like giving up after repeated failure, but there's a sneaky cousin of it that's entirely voluntary. Some people figure out early that competence gets punished with more work, while confusion gets rewarded with less. Be great at organizing events once, and suddenly you're the permanent unpaid party planner for life. Fumble it convincingly enough, and someone else takes the job forever. This is basically evolutionary economics playing out in a break room. Your brain, when it's being efficient rather than heroic, does a quiet cost-benefit analysis. Is showing off this skill going to get me more tasks or more freedom? Acting dumb, in these cases, isn't a failure of intelligence, it's intelligence camouflaging itself as incompetence to avoid becoming everyone's free labor. It's the human version of an animal playing dead. You're not actually helpless, you're just really, really good at looking like you are, so the predator, in this case Greg from accounting, loses interest and wanders off to bother someone else. Genuinely smart people learn fast which battles are worth their brain power, and which ones are worth a well-timed shrug and a, no idea how that works. Number 3. Confusion as a superpower. Here's a weird flex. The smartest people in any room are often the ones most comfortable saying, "I don't get this yet." Confusion has a terrible reputation. It feels like your brain short-circuiting, but, psychologically, it's actually a sign your mind is doing real work instead of coasting on autopilot. There's a concept called productive confusion, where researchers found that students who struggled and felt lost while learning something new retained it significantly better than students who breezed through with instant, easy understanding. Basically, confusion is your brain's version of a workout no burn, no gain. If information slides in without any friction, it slides right back out just as easily, like trying to stack marbles on glass. Acting a little dumb, or at least admitting confusion, instead of masking it with a confident nod, forces your brain to slow down and actually wrestle with the material, instead of just pattern matching it and moving on. It's the difference between skimming a recipe and actually cooking the dish. One leaves you with vague vibes, the other leaves you with a skill. So, that furrowed brow, wait, run that by me again moment you're embarrassed about? That's not weakness, that's your neurons lifting weights. Meanwhile, the person who gets it instantly often forgets it just as fast, strutting off with confidence and absolutely zero long-term retention to back it up. Number 2. Playing dumb. There's a strange social superpower hidden inside the phrase, wait, how does that work? You might already know exactly how it works. You just want the other person to keep talking. Playing dumb can be surprisingly useful because people generally love explaining things. Give someone the opportunity to demonstrate their expertise, and suddenly they transform into a documentary narrator with unlimited confidence. Actually, what you need to understand is, and there you are, quietly collecting information. This works because conversations aren't just exchanges of facts, they're also exchanges of status. People want to feel competent, useful, and respected. If you constantly correct everyone, you may win the argument while losing the person. Smart people eventually learn that being technically correct isn't always the same thing as being socially effective. Imagine your friend confidently explains something you already know. You could interrupt and say, actually, that's scientifically inaccurate. Or you could nod and ask, really? Why? Now they're talking. You learn how they think, what they believe, where they got the information, and possibly why they have somehow connected astrology to quantum physics. And sometimes, pretending not to know protects you from unnecessary conflict. You don't have to correct every bad opinion floating through the universe. The world already has enough comment sections. Of course, constantly pretending to be clueless can backfire. If you ask what a refrigerator does after owning one for 20 years, people may start investigating. But used carefully, playing dumb isn't stupidity, it's social intelligence wearing a fake mustache. Number 1. The fear of looking smart. At the very top, we've got the granddaddy of them all, acting dumb specifically to avoid the crushing social weight of looking smart. This sounds backwards, but there's a well-documented psychological pattern where people intentionally underperform in group settings to avoid triggering envy, resentment, or being labeled a know-it-all. It's sometimes discussed alongside tall poppy syndrome, the idea that whoever stands out the most tends to get cut down first. Your brain, being the socially paranoid roommate that it is, would often rather blend in and stay likable than stand out and become a target. This is why brilliant people sometimes deliberately flub an answer they know, or shrug off a compliment about their intelligence like it's a live grenade. Standing out cognitively can come with real social costs: isolation, jealousy, being voluntold for every hard task forever, so downplaying it isn't dumb at all, it's a calculated retreat. Evolutionarily, humans survived in tight groups where being disliked could mean actual exile, so your brain still treats "everyone thinks I'm a show-off" with the same panic it would treat "everyone thinks I should be left behind on the mammoth hunt." Acting dumb, in this final and most human way, isn't about your IQ at all. It's about your ancient, tribal nervous system quietly whispering, don't be the poppy that gets cut, even while your modern brain is fully capable of running circles around the room. That's all for today's video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe.